The Lathrop Manteca Fire Protection District has come back from closed session. At this time, to our legal counsel, is there anything to report?
No reportable action out of closed session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We will continue with roll call.
Chairman Gloriana Rhodes.
Here.
Vice Chair Jeremy Coe.
Here.
Director Ty Payton.
Present.
Director Robert Gleason.
Present.
Director John Gish.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Declaration of conflicts of interest. Are there any at this time? Looking to my left, looking to my right, there are none. We will go into public comments. Are there any public comments at this time? None seen or heard. We will go into schedule items 7.1, review and adopt strategic operational objective plan. Chief Neely? Or whoever's doing the report on this one?
I'm actually doing all the reports. She is,
Okay.
I needed to get back to. So I can pull it up on my computer too. So staff is presenting the strategic operational objectives plan for the fire board's review. Prior to this review, staff worked with the fire board in an effort to identify the goals of the district for the next fiscal year. The document in front of you today represents the goals and objectives needed to achieve the vision of the Lathrop Manteca Fire District. So we're going to review some of the stuff that we did change and didn't change. So we did not change the mission, because the mission of the Lathrop Manteca Fire District is to protect life and property through efficient and dedicated response to the emergency needs of our community, delivered with care, skill, and compassion to all who need our aid. The mission statement also the board agreed would stay the same, and that is the vision of the Lathrop Manteca Fire District is to stabilize the infrastructure and retention of employees through planned succession of a skilled, efficient workforce, to implement new technology while maintaining tradition by seeking out professional and innovative training and providing professional outreach to our community. So our values also remained, and that is integrity, dedication, honesty, compassion, loyal, professionalism, courtesy, and responsibility. And then the stakeholders, I believe we kept this the same too. The employees and their families, residents, business developers, City of Lathrop government, San Joaquin County, and other government agencies. So now we'll get into some of the stuff we did change. Yes?
Let me stop you real quick. Can you go back to vision statement for a quick second? I think that should say while maintaining tradition as opposed to maintain.
Okay.
All right. Yeah.
No, I'll maintain, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we go on to the SWOT analysis.
It
does on paper.
Not the one I had. The mission, the vision.
It's a vision statement. While maintaining.
Yeah, but that's not what it says.
It says while maintained.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we just changed it.
Yeah, while maintaining, it's just 3 more letters.
Got it. Yes. We'll get that taken care of though. So we went to strengths. We have the employees, diversity and experience and background, community involvement and outreach, skilled training throughout the workforce, and progressive, innovative workforce. We agreed that the weaknesses would be lack of racial and gender diversity, lack of institutional knowledge, and we talked about what that was, lack of volunteer retention, and a lack of a succession plan. Some of the opportunities we thought were out there was to build on existing infrastructure, expand EMS service, the JPA joint powers agreements, and we talked about what that would mean, not necessarily consolidating or joining another department, but other avenues, and local, state, and federal grants. Some of the threats we saw out there were the funding stability, outside state and federal policy changes, unfunded mandates, and privatization. Back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hate to be nitpicky.
No.
Can we back up to weaknesses? Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'll ask before we go forward from that.
No, you won't, you don't have. For succession plan, can you put in lack of succession plan as opposed to succession plan?
Okay,
Because that's what we're saying the weakness is right there.
right. It's the
Yeah,
lack
that's
of-
true, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
you said it, but it's not written down.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries. So we started with the goals and statements. So the board came up with the goals, and then I put the objectives in there. It'll be the 3 things that are listed underneath there. Again, that doesn't have to, just because I made them doesn't mean it has to be that way. If you don't like the objective of how we're gonna achieve that goal, and you have a suggestion, or you just want me to come back with another one, I can bring it back at the next meeting for that to be adopted into the plan. So the first one we did agree on was find opportunities to build and retain a more diversified racial and gender volunteer and full-time workforce. Kind of separated those a little bit. So some of the stuff that I met with staff, and we came up with some of these objectives of how we plan on meeting that goal. And so we all agreed that attending all career and job recruiting opportunities to expand our workforce. And what we mean by that is going to BTech when the students are there and talk to them about becoming volunteers or becoming reserves or becoming full-time firefighters because they have a program just for first responders. Attending the high school career days and making sure that we're out there supporting whatever and offering up any opportunity that we can do to assist people if this is the career they want and guide them in a route to get there. If, for instance, somebody has a career day, which hasn't happened in Lathrop, but if Stockton does or something, we would want to attend those career days or even job fairs so that we can offer up the opportunity for people to kind of get invested in our program.
MJC and Delta has one, they have them every year.
Right, so we're going to seek that out, and we're going to make sure that we get invited or we know about them, and we're going to be able to send people to go there. The other objective,
On that, just being nitpicky again.
Yeah.
I would take out the word all,
okay.
attend, career for, because when you
Yeah.
say all, that's,
We're going to hold you to it.
Well, we're going to do all that we can, right?
well, but that's different than all.
Okay. All right.
You won't meet your goal.
Right.
No, I'm good with that. You're
Like,
taking
like,
that.
do you want to attend the one that's at the Civic, or, in downtown Stockton? Not really geared for us. We might get a booth, but I don't think but at Delta or at MJC, a little bit, the caliber of person and career-oriented is a little bit different than, all the fast foods that show up at some of the others.
Well, they're at the arena now, don't they?
Yes, at the arena, yeah.
Okay. The next one was reach out to diverse racial and gender organizations during recruitment process. So when we're recruiting, we're going to reach out there and make sure that we go out and let everybody know that we're recruiting. We're actually hiring full-time firefighters, and we want people to apply and not just put it in the paper, but actually seek that out. And we're going to be doing that next month. I'm going to be advising you we are having a firefighter test, and so that's why I want to get these goals established so we can start incorporating them. Establish a mentoring program and provide assistance in understanding the testing process and requirements. And I think that may take people and push them aside because they just don't get it. They think it's not the same as applying for a regular job like at McDonald's or something. There's a series of tests and a series of things you have to go through, and help people understand it and help people through it so that we can help them. If there's a practice test for CPS, because we do the California
Physical agility standards
what's
test.
the P?
CPAT.
No, it's
Isn't it CPAT?
It's CPS, it's California something test, it's proficiency, something? It's the basic test everybody uses, it's the regular civil service test, basically.
The physical agility, basically.
No.
Oh,
written.
I'm sorry. The
But
written.
the physical agility, the CPAT, they do have, we'll explain that. There's opportunities for you to go and practice and get that taken care of, and we're going to make sure that we get that all established. So establish a mentoring program and provide assistance in understanding the testing process and requirements. Any questions on that goal?
With the gender organizations, so there's a lot of newsletters. So posting, our announcements in those newsletters that they have.
Yeah, no.
Because there's a lot out there.
Right, we're gonna try to hit as much as possible. I don't got all on that one, so we're gonna hit as much as possible with sending that stuff out, and that's gonna be an assignment that's gonna be delegated out to one of the battalions to make sure that they reach out and do that.
I'd like, this is a Bobism, like a report as to how we're doing in that area, because we kind of lack in reaching out in that area. You know, who do we contact, you know?
Yeah, I can put together a list of who we contacted for the board to look at. That's not a problem.
Okay.
So we're going to identify, the next goal was to identify the process to preserve institutional knowledge and define a succession plan. So the objectives to achieve this goal was to establish reference books for personnel, to be able to store vital information regarding the district that can be accessed and retained. And
So we need the 2 in there. PO,
Where at?
to be able to store.
Okay.
I'm doing a Ty Payton here.
To store. Okay. Do you got that? I'll have to talk to the person that proofread my stuff.
Well, we found out the problem is that when it's already in your mind, you see it, so.
Oh, no, I read it. I didn't have to just see it, I
Yeah.
read it. I did. I said it, I didn't say to be able store, right? So, vital information regarding the district, and what we mean by that is, we used to have apparatus books. We don't have those as much anymore, but they had everything in there, the oil, everything that was there, but not just that, any kind of nuances that we want in there, anything that happens. We just had another repair happen to engine 33, everything shut down, wouldn't start. It ends up being a cracked fuse holder in the main line of the chassis. So we had to, it's got fixed, but we spent money, having that researched up. And so that's just something that needs to be in that book that can be checked. When the same thing happens and we diagnose that this is doing the same thing it did last time, somebody will know that to check the fuse. And before we get it towed to international, and pay thousands of dollars in a bill, that there could be something simple fix as a fuse.
And if I may, Chief, just, although you'll do it whichever way you feel is better, but after we left the meeting, I remembered that we had the same problem when I took over years ago at my company, and what we actually did is we developed a really simple template, which was, it was almost like a memo to employees, and every time somebody had the knowledge, we sent it electronically and they would put it in and everybody turned them back in, and that was our book at the end of it. So we didn't have to hire anybody, everybody put his, but it was a template that looked the same. So all they had to do was fill it in, and we moved along.
No, and that's great. So, and how we're going to accomplish that is have, engineers will have to read that and they'll have to study that, and it'll be a reference book for everybody to go back to. We're going to do that for our high hazards too, so that institutional knowledge of when you go into Simplot, they don't make ammonia sulfate anymore, but when they did, this is flammable, this is a problem. That kind of stuff needs to be known and needs to be spread throughout the organization. So that's kind of the stuff, how we're thinking about that institutional knowledge. We're also talking about establishing that mentoring program. I think we take it for granted that the senior guy is going to explain everything to the junior guy. We assume that, especially from a chief's point of view, because that's how that stuff gets passed on. That's how that institutional knowledge is supposed to be passed on. But I don't think it's happening as well as it used to happen in the past. I mean, we took, I don't want to say we're not taking our job serious, but we took pride in making sure when we had probationary firefighters so that they understood that kind of information. So I want to make sure that there's a mentoring program and that there is an engineer that is assigned on each station for those probationary guys that they will go to. If they have a question, they need to be able to ask a certain person. So there'll be a go-to person, so there won't be any stupid questions. There is no stupid questions because somebody needs to know everything. So that's another objective we're going to put in place. We're going to provide the board a succession plan to be implemented with a segregation of duties to encapsulate a more stable workflow. So what I'm going to bring back to you is that succession plan, how we're going to put it in place. I have a battalion chief's position. I was going to notify you at the next board meeting. We're battalion chief's position. We're going out and we're going to test for that. We're going to try to get them from acting to full-time battalions, and then we have a captain's position available that if that does happen. And so how that segregation of duties, and so the board will understand, for instance, how the budget is. We're going to talk about the budget in a little bit here, but how do we come up with those needs, right? What do we need in the district? There's always the day-to-day, hey, we need to pay the bills to keep the electricity on, but there's always going to be the needs of, hey, we need to purchase new equipment, we need to do this. And there'll be a succession plan of how that happens, and that will be transferred on from years to come so that it can still be incorporated into what we do. So that's what we want to do with that. So that'll bring back that to you. Any questions on identifying the process to preserve institutional knowledge? Okay. The next one was seek out opportunities to expand services through joint powers agreements, grants, and interagency relations. We're going to collaborate with other county and city agencies to seek out grants for equipment and other opportunities. We talk about this a lot where there is an opportunity. We did some with French Camp when Paul Twella was on there. He went after an OTS grant, and we were able to get on that. Also, we got our big, heavy stabilizers for that grant. And I think it just has kind of died down a little bit, and I think that we need to get back into that and start looking at opportunities. And we do a radio grant every year. We pay for a grant writer to do that, and we include all of the county agencies when we do that. We haven't got it the last couple of years, but if we do get it, that's one thing that we do reach out and do. We do our SAFER grant, because you're allowed to do a SAFER grant and you're allowed to do another grant. We do the radio grant for the county. Some agencies do SCBAs. Unfortunately for us, when we buy new equipment, it puts us in the back of the burner for the grants because we have new equipment. When you go to get a grant, they want you to have old equipment. They want it to be a real need for federal money. And we fall short on that because we replace our turnouts, for instance. We've had to. I mean, the government requires these mandates that we have to meet, and we've had to replace them. We can't wait till the stitching's falling off that we're available for a grant, unfortunately, because we just take too much risk with that, and I don't want to put the board in that position or myself. So we're going to seek out what we can, include people, and we're going to ask people to seek out themselves and include us with grants.
Because there's a lot of NGO grants out there, especially for public safety. So it's not just going to the feds or going to the states. You know, there's non-governmental agencies who this is what they do. It's kind of like the Coit Tower, you know,
Right.
type of thing with those.
And we've gotten some personal stuff. I mean, Simplot has donated, 10 grand to us last year? Yeah, and so 16. We got a lot of hazmat equipment. So there's other avenues for us to be able to get some grants from local agencies and private stuff too. So we'll seek those out. We're going to establish a consortium to work on placing a special operations group throughout San Joaquin County under a joint powers agreement. We currently have the joint powers agreement for the radio, for the dispatch, but we'd like to see something for when we have hazmat. Hazmat is a joint, is it a joint powers agreement? No, it's an agreement. So it's not a joint powers, but it's kind of a joint powers because everybody has power at the steering committee to be able to vote. But it's not formal joint powers, but we're looking at something for USAR, and we need to put those special operations out there and make sure that everybody's there. We're going to work on the county OES to establish an incident management team through a joint powers agreement, so something that we'd all have say on what happens. They have a county incident management team that it's kind of worked, but just recently when we did the flood, that really came down to them picking and choosing 3 people to run it. And so since the city of Lathrop was affected and our rural area, they chose me to be and sit on that team. And then Stockton has Western Ranch, so they said, hey, Western Ranch is a big deal and it's going to be an issue. They want somebody from Stockton on there. So they took the fire, myself and Matt Duane. And then we had an SO representative because of the way it all falls in the regulation. But they actually delegated that authority to us. So there wasn't a question of us just acting like the incident commanders. That there was actually a letter of delegation of authority that issued to us, and that's going to be huge because we just got contacted from FEMA about reimbursing us for all that money. And somehow they want to know where that comes into play of how did you get the authority. And so it really was a big deal that we did that. So, but we need to formalize that, I think, in the county and with OES, and we need to make sure that they understand how these players play and get everybody ramped up, because at the end of the day, we were like, hey, who wants to be on a team? Who wants to get signed off on some of their tasks? Where does this fall into place? And so not as much as it was a complete a shot from the hip, but I think if you put something in place and you establish that and we train together as a team, we'll just be more efficient and more effective in the future. So that was what we've got in there for objectives. Any questions on that? We want to continue to monitor and address threats that, the goal was to continue to monitor and address threats that could financially impact the well-being of the fire district. So, first thing we want to do is keep up on local and regional events while analyzing all potential outcomes. So, what's happening in the north, what's happening in the south, and that means attending these conferences like the EMSA, which the EMS agency put on, to understand what they're doing and where these local LMSAs are seeing the EMS agencies work and how much authority all that happens. And even at the California level, we need to make sure that we have somebody, and analyzing that. Well, how is that going to affect us at the end of the day? Where does that come down to us? It may not affect us, but it may affect us. So we want to make sure that we keep up on that. We want to attend all conferences that deal with unfunded mandates and participate in global policy decisions. So when they came out with the turnouts, NFPA used to have a recommendation in there that they recommended that they had a shelf life of 15 years, but they realized that not every department is Oakland. And there's other departments like us, we don't run the call volume Oakland does. Oakland, their turnouts probably don't even last 15 years. But for us, some of our reserves, those turnouts could last 20 years, depending on what the call volume is. Well, that has been taken off the table, and now they're saying there's a shelf life on those, and that's it. You have to have them inspected, so that's unfunded mandates. They're mandating that we have to replace those turnouts, and they're mandating, but there's no funding for that. So some of the reasons why we need to participate in those decisions and understand how they're going to impact our organization, again, falling back onto 1, 2, kind of interact, so that we can start preparing for the funding of that. 3, continue to build relationships that foster mutual empowerment to face global threats with a united front. And what I mean by that is we need to come together. Fire chiefs have to come together, and they have to say, hey, we're no longer going to, they pick us apart, and they come after, and they divide, and they conquer. We have to have one force that we come together, and we need to foster those relationships that we're there. It may not affect us, but we need to stand with our neighbor, our other fire agency, and we need to say, hey, as a group, that affects all of us at some point, and we need to make sure that we have a united front.
Like detachment.
Kind of like detachment, yeah. Like detachment.
Well, because it affects a lot of fire districts.
There just has to be, detachment. There has to be, the EMS agency, for instance, Stockton doesn't have a problem not going to Alpha Bravo calls. That's a low, not low frequency, but it's just a low call. It could be somebody who stubbed their toe or whatever. It depends what the EMD breaks it down to. And I don't want to get too far into it because Jeremy could probably give it a better example than me. But, excuse me, Director Coe, Vice Chair Coe. But some of the agencies like Manteca, they want to go to that. They have, and Tracy, that's what they're fighting is, but, we have to stand a united front. We have to go one way or the other. And so we have to make a decision as a group that, hey, we're going to go to these calls, or we're going to ask them to segregate that. And that's what's been happening, but that's just an example of how we need to come to a united front and say, hey, we get LMSA, you get the authority to say what the parameters are and how that works, but we don't want to take away the ability from an organization to say what calls they want to go to, and so There's got to be a mutual agreement, and we need to build that relationship, just not with our other fire agencies, but we need to build it with the LMSA. We need to make sure that we understand each other. So that's what I mean by continue to build that relationship. Questions on that?
No.
Any questions or comments?
Okay.
Very good, this was very nice.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and, you guys can adopt it. I think I have it on there. Yeah, review and adopt the strategic operational plan with the typo changes. And we'll get it a formal document for you guys at the next meeting.
Because they are typo changes, you don't have to include that in the motion.
No, yeah, because it was just grammar.
So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
So move that we approve the strategic plan for 2016, 2017.
I'll second that.
So I have a motion by Gleason, second by Coe.
This will be 17,
Please
18.
do a roll call.
You want to amend that?
Yeah, it's debate.
Director Gish,
Yes.
Director Gleason,
Yes.
Director Payton.
Yes.
Vice Chair Coe,
Yes.
Chair Rhodes.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll go to 7.2, which is review and adopt capital improvement plan, CIP, for 2017-2018.
Okay. Staff is presenting the capital improvement plan for your review. While reviewing this document, please be mindful that this is a living document. While the projected capital improvements are listed, we are unable to list others like the new fire station. This is due to the timing of the bids and the method in which it is being constructed. Once the cost has been finalized, staff will bring back an amendment to this document during this fiscal year. We also have an engine that has to be purchased that we're going to be adding to that, and it will be funded through the fire facility fees. So the example with the station is that they're building the station, we're going to take possession of that station, and when we do, there'll be a period of us reimbursing the cost of that station, and that'll be spelled out through the capital improvement plan, so you can see what those are. Those numbers are going to vary a little bit. We're going to do some good estimations, because we don't know how much we're going to collect and what will be reimbursed, but it will be updated annually. It's a living document, so we make sure that it'll be as accurate as possible. So, I just have the summary here. If anybody has any questions specifically on any item, I can go to it, but I just wanted to go over the summary, which is in 2013, we had bay door openers for Station 31. We're still planning on, and how this works, I would love for the capital improvement plan to be where we save the money up and then we have the project done. Unfortunately, some of these are leases, so we've already received the capital project and we are paying it off as we go. So I'll explain those as we go. So the bay doors, we're planning on putting $10,000 in 18-19 and in 19-20, and then we'll complete the project in 2020, and that'll be $20,000. The Station 31 windows and slider, we're recommending this year, we're going to put $5,000 aside in the capital project, and then another $5,000 in 18 and in 19 and in 2021, and have that replaced in 2022.
Are those the two doors, or you talk the tilt windows too?
Just the two doors. I think, did we talk about tilt windows? Yeah, the tilt windows also.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get those done. And it's an efficiency thing, so.
Save money on PG&E.
Yeah, need to do that. The floor replacement, we're recommending, we're going to do that this year. It's 10 grand. And I'll bring that back. All these will be brought back to the board also. Just because you approve them now, you are approving the expenditures if it's expended this year. If it's listed to be expended this year, you are approving that expenditure. It's been put in the budget. But how we're going to do that, we'll bring back to the board so they can review. Because one of the things at Station 31, we're thinking about just stripping everything out and polishing the floor and making it a concrete, more commercial type. We've tiled floors in the past, so we'll bring that back for you guys to look at.
Doesn't that also, by stripping it down, sealing it, bring us up to a, I want to say hospital grade because of pathogens and stuff won't be stored within the floors?
Absolutely. So we want to remodel it a little bit too. We want to reconfigure the kitchen to make it more user-friendly and functional. So we're going to bring back a whole different thing for the floor replacement and some remodeling. The EPCR program that you guys approved, we're carrying that forward because it may lead into the next year to complete, And so we have the we have the $25,000 for a carryover in 16, 17. Then we go down to suppression improvements, and we have the only thing we have for this, the carryover for this year is you guys have already approved the $250,000 for equipment. That was a not to exceed number. We're starting to purchase that equipment and bring it in. And so when we finally true that up, we'll correct the capital improvement ladder. You can see, though, that you're going to have the engine replacement for 32. Those have already been replaced, and those were the cost. We do have an end, finally. It doesn't carry all the way through the capital improvement project, and the payoff is in 2020. So those engines will be paid and done in 2020. You can see that we have the dive response. We're starting to save up for that. And we're hoping to have that replaced in 2022. And then the ladder is also, that has been leased, but it's through the fire facility fee money, and that ladder is about $100, I can't see it, it's $115, I think, $116,000 a year, and then the last payment is $74,000 in 2022. That one will be paid off. So if you want to look through the plan, you can pull up, let's say we pull up that one, and God, this looked small. I didn't think it'd be this small. But you can see where the money's coming from, right? It gives you the layout of the account, fire facility fee, $3,000, where it's coming from, and where that money's going to be revenue.
What's AFG grant?
So assistance to firefighter grant, if we ever get a firefighter grant and we could use it for a capital improvement project, then, so it's just a holder for that.
Okay.
So that's kind of how that worked. Does anybody have any questions for the capital improvement?
This solar, does that all on this year's budget, or how's that being budgeted? Because that's a capital improvement.
Right. But we don't pay it. So we don't pay for the solar. It's a PGA, a purchase agreement. So we don't actually pay for the solar, but let's say we want to pay for it, and because every 5 years you have an opportunity to buy it out. So if we want to buy it out, then I would add it to this capital improvement, and then we'd save up for it, if that's the goal of the district, and then with the board, and then we'll do that. So right now, I don't put anything in there, because basically we pay for whatever it cost us for electricity, which is at the cheaper rate.
Yep.
But yeah, if we're gonna buy it out, which I think it's reasonable to do within the first 5 years, then we need to start saving for it. I need to set money aside for it. Or we can loan the money to ourselves if we wanted to. Let's say we haven't made a decision whether we wanted to buy it, and then at some point, the board says, you know what, and I bring it back to you and say, hey, it's a great deal, we need to buy it, it's $50,000, and then we don't have to pay electricity ever again, and we have to pay this $50,000, then potentially we could go out and get a loan, or we could borrow it from our fire facility fee money and pay that money back, and then I would put it together in a capital improvement plan so that you have a trail of how that money gets paid back.
Any other questions or comments? So I'll entertain a motion.
So move that we approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Gleason, second by Payton. Please do roll call.
Director Gish,
Yes.
Director Gleason,
Yes.
Director Payton,
Yes.
Vice Chair Coe,
Yes.
Chair Rhodes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go now, thank you. We'll go to review budget study session now, which is 7.3. That is the preliminary budget funding year 2017-2018.
Okay, so here we go. Okay, staff is presenting the preliminary budget draft for the fire board's review. Prior to this review, staff worked with all the line personnel assigned to individual projects in an effort to identify the needs of the district. The document in front of you today represents the projected funding needed to achieve those needs and continue with the day-to-day operations for the fiscal year 17-18. These are a little better, I'm glad, because the other ones were real tiny. So this is these are our balanced budgets. It's projected because we still have to finalize some of the numbers when we get the next couple of months. But we're projecting that there'll be a $750,000 balance, and the revenues are going to be $7.8 million, and the expenditures $7.817. The fund balance will be at the end estimated in 18 of June will be $803,000. And we'll see that at the end of the $50,000 difference between the two budgets. So the capital outlay has $445,000. We have revenues projected about $50,000 is what we're going to carry over there. And then expenditures of 10 grand is what we have expended for this year. In the fire facility fee, we have expenditures of, a balance of 1.4. The budgeted revenue, it's hard to adjust revenue for fire facility fee because it's based on building, so it's just an estimate, and that one will remain an estimate because I don't know who's going to build and who's going to pay for fees. And then we have a budgeted expenditures of $356,000. Measure C, again, we don't know what the property tax is going to, sales tax is going to bring in, but our balance after this year is going to be $401,000. We have a revenues of 1.3, and then we have expenditures of 1.364. And that will leave us just a little bit of balance what we carry over into the next fiscal year of $14,000. Any questions?
Kinda.
Okay.
Clarification kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this takes in our reserve funds. So when we look at fund balance being carried over, that's not our reserve funds.
Yes, that is the reserve
That is
funds.
reserve funds.
We have not designated, so one of the things that we may want to look at, and we can discuss this is a great opportunity actually, is a lot of people take their reserve and they throw it into their capital outlay account. And they have it as a reserve account. And so we have always left our reserve in our reserve account, and the reason being is because of the teeter plan. We utilize that reserve to carry us through some of the year until we get our initial tax. We would have to have 53% of our budget in order not to do that.
But if it was another line item here, so it says general fund and reserve, then we would see that reserve is what's being carried over for just in case.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing an increase for reserve, basically, of, we're going to 803 at the end of next year.
I can easily put another line and separate the reserve on this, and then that way it would be separate, not the general fund, but just put a reserve on there above it and put the 750 there, and then have the funding balance start at 0, just so it'd be a number.
Yeah.
And then the revenues, the expenditures, and then you'd see at the fund balance at the end, the 53,000, which is the difference here between the two. And then at that time, next year, I could carry that over into the reserve account.
And then with, I'm looking,
So, before we get any further, are you going to change topic?
no? Oh, well, I'm going to go to another line item, but the
Okay,
same thing.
but if the same one, is the board okay with that?
Yeah, I like it. Your fund balance should be really 0.
I just want to get confirmation from the rest.
That's
but-
fine.
Is everybody okay? Yeah.
Okay, so I'll change that in the budget and the preliminary. Okay, go ahead. Next one.
So, yeah, so, in looking at the figures there, so, we're going to be going down. I see just so we got 400, and we'll look at Measure C, 400. And then we're projecting, revenues of 1.3.
77, yeah.
Now, I don't want to bring up a bad subject, but I kind of want to know, how did Flying J, do we know what kind of tax revenue is going to be brought in by Flying J? Because that's a lot.
It is, and so that is a significant amount that's going to be brought in, but we don't know what that's going to take away.
Do we look at what Lodi's doing, what Rippon's doing?
So we have an estimate of what that's going to bring in, but nobody knows what it's going to take away from
Yeah.
the other.
Oh, okay, I understand that. Yeah.
So that's why that's why I can't do a great analysis of that, because we don't know what is going to happen at Joe's Travel Plaza.
Yeah.
When Flying J comes in, who is going to not go to Joe's Travel Plaza because of Flying J? I'm just,
It's just price of gas, Yeah.
right, and so I totally understand that, but so it'd be hard for me to be able to know that.
Okay, that's,
So I have to go off, so what I do is go off last year's, what we received in.
Yeah.
And that'll be a good basis. I think once we get a full year from the Travel Plaza, added into the Measure C account, then we'll be able to have a better estimate.
okay. Good, that's all I had.
Anybody else?
No.
Okay.
Really? You guys gotta start asking more questions.
You keep going first. I think they get their questions answered when you ask. So, opening balance, again, 150. So these are for the fiscal years 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, and then the projected differences from obviously 16, 17 to the current year. So you can kind of see what our opening balance was, money we carried over. So in the 5-year plan, we knew that when we carried over $534,000 in 15, 16, I already had budgeted that we were going to also carry over $310,000. And as you see the 5-year plan, it didn't come in your packet, but I have it at the end here, because we have to look 5 years out. So that $310,000, it's an opening balance, and it's a rollover, and again, that would have been on the number, the $310,000, we talked about the slide before. That's going to be the opening balance that we carry over into the revenue. So that's something we're carrying over, and we're going to carry over some of this year's budget, and I'll show you that number as we get down. Okay, so you have the opening balance, the property tax, the intergovernmental revenues, and the miscellaneous revenues. And this is how it's split out from the county. So, and then we have it subdivided after that. So in the general revenues, it's the property tax share, SB 813, tax unsecured taxes, SB 813, and then prior, and then unsecured prior. So this is the revenues that we have projected and what we brought in for some of this area, and some of these are changed. So you got to remember, I don't get the final numbers until October from the county. We do our budget sometime before then, so some of this is projected, but we use the common, I guess, standard that everybody is projecting throughout the area. So we get an estimate from the auditor, but we don't get final numbers until sometime in October. And I bring those numbers to you, and we update the budget at that time. So we have a projected increase of $222,000 in the property tax, and then a increase in the unsecured of $13,314. And intergovernmental, that's our permits. What that is out-of-district billing when somebody has a DUI or gets in an accident or something, and all I base that on is what we've had last year. Some of that is illegal fires. We can charge for that kind of stuff, so that's our schedule of fees that we use. Fire permits, the interest that we received, homeowner property tax, which is an adjustment when people buy houses and sell houses in mid-year. And then there's also a property override tax. That's our ordinance that we have in place. And I didn't change that much this year, but that's probably going to stay the same for the next year. Back taxes is about 127 when they go back and they fine people, or we fine back taxes. That number gets carried over. And then other service fees could be bounce checks. It could be other fees that we charge for the intergovernmental revenue. And then plan checks. And so that's pretty much stays the same. So there wasn't any changes for the projected variance. In miscellaneous, remember that's one line item, and I have to break that out because the board requested that several years ago for me to break all of that out. When we get our financials from the county, they just have a miscellaneous revenue, and we have to break all that money out. So we did have an increase in Measure C because the cost of firefighters goes up, and instead of listing the overtime, we did a analysis of how much overtime it costs per firefighter to have them in place, and we came up with the the increase of $236,000 based on all that information. So Measure C funding will go up $236,000 this year. Then we get to the expenditures. This is a summary. We have salaries and benefits based on raises and step increases. Administration costs went up $25,000. The support services, $24,000. Emergency operations, $26,000. And then we have insurance has gone up, and that will always go up. And then the fiscal year rollover. So this is that number I talked to you at the beginning, the carryover. This is the fiscal year rollover. So here, you see the 534 here, the 310 here, and the 133 here. And at the end, you'll see how that balances our budget throughout. If I were just to take the 310 and put it into reserve, we would then be tapping into that to pay for some of this year's revenue, because we take that revenue and we squash it, we push it across, so it's more of a consistent. You have a question?
Our city loan,
Yeah.
When are we paid? When's that done?
Next year. Yeah, no, we're pretty happy about that. You're gonna see, when you look at the 5-year model, you're gonna see two things. The engine's getting paid off and the city loan being paid off, and it's a significant increase in our revenue. So, well, in our carryover, I should say. So you'll see that at the end here. Oops, oh, I got crazy here. Okay, so this is the positions. What we have budgeted is a fire chief, a battalion chief, 3 acting currently until we test and if we promote. Executive, 1 fire marshal, a fire inspector, office clerk, a permit clerk, 9 captains, 3 acting captains, 15 firefighter engineers, and 25 reserve firefighters. And I haven't broken that out into the fire engineers versus the firefighters yet. And if you'd like me to do that this year, because we did sign the contract, I can make that change. Yeah, okay. Sounds good. It makes sense. Okay. So then we look at salaries, regular salaries, gone up $153,000. Overtime, I increased it by $100,000 to $400,000. We have other employee benefits, which is holiday pay, and that went up for $4,000 and some change. Retirement went up $113,000, and then you have Social Security has gone up, and Medicare has gone up, and those are all based on the percentages of wages. So when the wages go up, all of those are going to increase. We haven't received the health insurance as much as it's going to go up, but we anticipate that will go up, and we'll have to make that in the adjustment process. Then the administration, which includes office expenses, memberships, professional services, dispatching, tax charges, director expenses, and elections. We just carry over $12,000 this year. I think elections was 20-something thousand, and we had to pay that. Next year, obviously, we don't have an election in 17-18, but we pay half of it. We try to set aside half of it for that year because it's about $24,000 to have an election. And so all that bases on different things. But the only thing we did have an increase is dispatching. It went up. It's going to go up $15,000. Support services include equipment maintenance, radio maintenance, fuel, lube, and oil, tires and tubes. Some of this increases are based on the needs and the daily, so there's some needs in here that we need to get done, and there's some day-to-day, most of it's day-to-day operations, but there was an increase of $5,000 in equipment maintenance. We did have a decrease in radio maintenance, station maintenance went down, and other than that, it pretty much stayed the same for station and grounds and support services. Question?
So on our utilities, that includes what we're going to be paying in regards to our fee, essentially.
Actually, that should go down. I just don't have the numbers yet until we get the panels put in play.
When do you expect that to?
They were out today to look at the roof, and it seems like every time we turn around, there's something. And so we're looking for the plans for Station 31, and we've been researching that up. They need to know the structural components of the roof, and so it's always something. But we're working as steadily as we can. The funding's coming. They said, Sue, she spoke with them, next week. Good. Okay, and then we have emergency operations, which is firefighter supplies, PPE, public relations and training. Those have all decreased. Because if you remember, we came back mid-year last year, we bought all those extra turnouts, and we bought everything to adjust the budget, so they've decreased. But if you look from the year before, we have increased them. So it's a little deceiving, because you got $25,000, but we had to up the firefighter supplies to 31 to have some one-time purchases, but it did go up from 25,000 straight to 25,630. So there was an increase of 637 from the previous year. So there was somewhat of an increase, but it looks like a decrease of what we spent last year.
On our EMS supplies, so are we reimbursed through insurance at all?
No, except for out-of-district building.
Out-of-district building. So do we pick some up from MDA who bills for their supplies?
Yes. We do have an exchange program with them that we exchange some of our stuff, but some of it's going to be So, for instance, we're going to take, now that we're doing the optional skills, we'll be taking on the responsibility of the expired EpiPens. So if we don't use an EpiPen and it expires, that's at our cost. Same thing for the Narcan.
Will that be under EMS supplies, or will that be on another line item?
EMS supplies.
Okay.
So that's why they got the increase in there this year. And then fire prevention pretty much stays across the board. We do a lot of that stuff, certs in-house and our books and that kind of stuff, so. Insurance, we have an increase of $29,000 we're anticipating, just based on the cost of employees. And then the physical exams pretty much stay the same. We stay within that $8,900 for the firefighter physicals and the exams for the firefighter safety. One of the things I am talking to the labor currently is a wellness program that we want to put in place. We have some money set aside in our JAC fund for equipment, and we want to be able to buy some new equipment for the stations. That's kind of not unfunded, but it's unrestricted funds that we get for training, and we're going to look at putting that together for the firefighters. But one of the things that I'd like to have with that is a fitness program, so that they can go out and take physicals. They should be getting their own physicals, and they should be looking at their documentation. And firefighters are always worried about the organization or the administration looking at their physicals, and that's really not what it's about. It should be about a firefighter getting a physical, and if he does find something wrong, because we all get old and find things wrong with ourselves, that we help him achieve what he needs to get to put him back into where he needs to be. So if people go and find they have high blood pressure, and then they need to, because they're eating wrong, or maybe they're overweight, or whatever the case is, that should be something that we should be, as an organization, encouraging them to work out, to take the time and take care of their bodies, because that is the most expensive resource we have. I mean, you look at a fire engine, yeah, that's a couple $1 million, but we spend $2.6 million a year in personnel, and so annually. And so if we don't take care of our firefighters to help them take care of themselves, we just don't have an organization that's going to work effectively and efficiently. So you may see this increase, but I have to get buy-in from the organization, from the labor side. So we're working on that. So then you look at the total expenditures for the year, and here is your revenue versus expenditures, and this will be spelled out in that top line, or actually the line item where you'll see the $53,000. Either we'll carry it over, and that's above the carryover, because remember, we addressed the carryover as an expenditure back here, right? Sorry, I know, and I'm going fast. So the rollover is the carryover, right? That we are projecting that we're going to carry over to balance the budget next year. The $53,000 is above that. So we can either put it in reserve, or it's kind of a buffer for me in case there is a hidden cost somewhere, an engine breaks down that we didn't expect, or the engine blows up. So this is the 5-year model. As you see, the green is our reserve. So if you look at 21, remember we talked about it being paid off the next year? So it's paid off, and there's significant increases in the revenue and the expenditures over the next years after that. Any questions?
Questions?
Nope.
Nope?
Oh, I've asked all them all.
No, that's a good
Come
question.
on, Bob.
Another question?
Well,
I have no questions. I asked them.
oh, yeah, all
No,
right.
and I appreciate that. I'd rather answer them as we go.
No, this is very good. So with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Oh, this is just a budget review.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
So, yeah, it's just a study session for you guys to have input. I will take the items that you've addressed to separate those, and Becky has taken notes on that. So next month, I'll be bringing you a preliminary to adopt.
Very good. So with that, we'll go into board comments and referrals. I'll start on my left.
Me. In our off-budget topic, kind of, but on our surplus policy, what is the amount that has to be approved by the board?
Is it I just want to clarify something real quick. Is it the reserve policy, or is it called a surplus?
Surplus.
The surplus.
Is it surplus? Is
Surplus
that the
goods.
reserve policy we talk about?
The purchasing surplus.
Oh, the surplus of, okay, I'm sorry.
Surplus
I'm
of
thinking
goods.
budgeting, I'm
Yeah, no,
sorry.
no, off budget.
I know.
Off budget.
So that's in the purchasing policy? And so I think it was, what's the question?
Okay, so there's a certain amount that you have discretion, surplus, it's gone, and then there's
Right.
like the engine that comes before us because it's over the amount.
I think it was $5,000, I believe. I'd have to look. Can you look that up real quick?
5,000?
She's going to look it up real quick, because it actually should be in your, oh, you don't have your binders. I'm sorry.
No, you don't.
There was just a question after our last meeting. Someone caught, they gave away turnouts. No, well, we have a policy that allows that
Yeah.
to occur.
No, that's a good
And we
question.
didn't go over that, it was just, but
Well, but wait, because there is a specific law. Nobody that can benefit from an item can make a decision on identifying surplus.
right, but it went to B, some turnouts went to B-Tech, went to.
Oh, okay,
Manteca Unified.
that's
So,
different, yeah.
yeah, so that was,
Yeah.
so someone caught that, and I was like, I know there's a policy, and I just didn't have time to really sit and go through it and look it up.
Notify them.
You were too busy planning your.
I was too busy. Yeah.
So, yeah, those turnouts were donated to VTech, and they were non-serviceable. So I either had to destroy them or donate them. And so there was no value, because they were non-serviceable.
Yeah.
So, you're right, the amount, I'm sorry, I misstated the amount. It's $100.
$100.
Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought we had increased that, that's why I asked her if that was current. Because I thought we increased that to $5,000, but that might be in the depreciation schedule. But anyways, there was no value to them. So I either had to throw them in the dumpster, and they asked them to use them for you can't buy used turnouts, so. They're non-serviceable. So they use them for practice and training at the school. It was B-Tech that we donated those to. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Hopefully, it should answer that person's question.
It's a good question, because I would be asking that too if I was the public.
So, firework enforcement. Okay, so this is where I come from this, is that there's someone on Neighborhood Watch who, like, every other night complain about fireworks, and now the city has rewritten their thing where fire has authority to take care of that too,
Yes.
along with law enforcement. And the person's complaining about it's happening in and around Fireside Inn, it's like 5th to 7th Street, J Street to the Lathrop Road, somewhere in along there, and they're like, where's PD, where's fire? And I don't know what our policy is going to be on how we're going to handle that. And I'm not expecting an answer now, but we need to address that so that the public kind of knows what our role is going to be in this thing that the city said we're going to do, or giving us authority to
So
do.
the short answer is, we're going to be issuing citations.
Who?
The fire district.
The captains?
Yeah, the captains. Just like we issue violation notices now, we're going to be issuing citations for people that are violating and actually, we have the authority to do that now. We didn't need the city's authority to do that. As a fire district, through the state fire marshal, we have the authority to issue violation notices and then carry them through. The problem is just what I said, carry them through. Because once you issue the notice, then you're going to have to go to court. You're going to have an attorney there to actually go through the proper, because I can't do that, and go through the proper channels of citing them and fining them and all that. We can fine them once we get the ability, if we catch them, right? Because what the city adopted is the host. So that means if at your house, your nephew comes over and shoots fireworks off, even if you know about it or not, you're going to get cited because it's your house. That's what that ordinance does for us. It gives us the ability to go, you're the host, you own this house, you're the homeowner, you're the renter, you're being cited. It doesn't have to be you, right? You're supposed to be a responsible host and not have people doing illegal stuff at your house. Now we have the authority to do that with PD. we're not going to be doing that by ourselves. We're not going to houses typically where they're firing fireworks off. There's a lot of alcohol intake going on, and so we don't want to put our firefighters in a position where they're having to fight their way out of a crowd because they need to cite somebody for a fireworks violation. So we're going to be coming together as a task force, and we're going to be hitting the big players this next year on the 4th of July. If somebody has a complaint about what's now being done, definitely tell them to call us so that we can go over there, especially while it's going on. Because if we can catch them doing that, we can cite them and confiscate them.
Sounds like it's only one or two. They're lighting off one or two a night.
It happened Memorial Day. We're all sitting there, the fire engine and myself, we're all sitting there, and then all of a sudden, boom, boom, right behind us, and then you look out, and there's a big old cloud. Somebody fired up some aerial stuff.
Well,
Nothing after that.
what he's talking about, they are quite frequent, yeah.
Yeah, because, it's right
But,
around your house.
Yeah, they're they're quite frequent. But the problem is that the people that know and hear will post it on Facebook, but never go further than that. So my response is always, call PD.
Yeah.
You know, now I can tell them, call PD and or the fire department.
Yeah, we'll go out
Yeah.
and we'll investigate. If we can find them, then we'll do what we have to
Oh,
do.
believe me, I've ran out to figure out where they're at and can't see it.
It's that quick.
Theirs sounds like they're sly.
Well, it's going to be interesting because my neighbor, he fires off a show every year, and every time I go around the corner, they shut it down. So we're gonna get a little more aggressive this year. So yeah, that's my answer. We don't have a policy in place of how we're going to handle that. That's going to be how we're going to handle that.
Okay, that's all I had, Madam Chair.
I've got nothing.
So the City of Stockton had a big fire last week.
Yes.
How did that impact our district?
That's a great question. So we sent 2 engines. We sent one to cover initially at Station 5, I believe, was the first dispatch. And then that engine got pulled into the 3rd alarm, and then they requested a strike team, and we sent an engine out to that. We then had a call back and had our engine staffed in no time. It didn't negatively impact us at all, but we had 2 engines over there.
Has the City of Stockton impacted our district more frequently with the staffing challenges that they may or may not be experiencing with their callbacks or?
Not recently. I mean, if you want to look over a short period, no. But if you want to look over a bigger period, I'd say yeah. So when they stopped, when Chief Pacheco was here in 2012, 13, I think when he cut the staffing down, we did see an increase of how much they call us, maybe 1 or 2 times, but it's nothing that has been, I guess, overburdening, if you wanted to say that.
And I guess the next question is, on the flip side, how often has the City of Stockton had to help us?
So we've called them quite a bit. I would say maybe it would probably be, I could look those numbers up to be exact, but it'd probably be a fair back and forth, because when we had the Wildland fire down south, they came with 2 or 3 engines for us and some dispatches. So we've had them over there. So we get it back.
That's why they call it mutual aid?
That's why they call it mutual aid. All right.
Thank you, Chief.
Do you have anything?
No,
Okay, so with that, I have nothing. Oh, go ahead.
Just a reminder, I will not be here for the next meeting.
Yeah.
June 15th.
You and Bob are going to be out.
So
Excuse me.
critical that the
Turn to
3 of
base. I'm
us,
sorry about that. It's-
yeah. So it's
just
critical
a
that
habit.
the 3 of us that can be here, because if not, we won't be able to have a meeting.
Right. And then
Public hearing, so it's kind of important that you're.
Yeah,
yeah, and then I'll be reminding you next meeting, we got the Napa thing coming up too.
I'll be in
very
the
good.
seat. Sorry.
Okay, so with that, if there isn't anything else, I will adjourn this meeting.
Real quick, good, adjourn the meeting, but since you guys won't be here, and that.
Sorry about that. Meeting is still on, but I think he
No,
disconnected.
you're good. I just wanted to remind the 2 members that aren't going to be here next meeting of the Napa conference.
Okay.
That's
so
it.
Meeting is still
July
adjourned.
9th through 12th.
Yeah. It's on my calendar.
Okay.
Don't plan on being there. I'm not going out. Yeah.
Officially adjourned.
all right.
You're not going?
Napa? I'm going to Napa.
Oh.
I'm just month of June, I'm going to be.
Oh, that's right.
with thanks.